Okay, so if you have not seen the news yet on ESPN, I suggest you check it now because this will completely shock you. The Cowboys have cut Dez Bryant. Now, I did expect this move to happen in the near future, but it did actually catch me off guard because we're like only a week or two removed from the upcoming 2018 NFL draft. So if the Cowboys were going to cut Dez Bryant, I would have expected it to happen way before the free agency period started. Like when the Packers cut Jordy Nelson. I was expecting that if the Cowboys were going to cut Bryant, they'd do it then because that would clear up some of the cap space and we'd be able to potentially sign more free agents. So, given that free agency is pretty much over by now, it really surprised me that the Cowboys followed through with it, and that I know from what my research, Jerry Jones actually did not want to cut Dez Bryant, but it was everyone else regarding like the Cowboys management that wanted to do it. So for all the Cowboys fans that are blaming Jerry Jones on this move, it's not his fault. It's not his fault that Dez Bryant was cut, and even then, I'm not even gonna say if it's technically a fault yet at all. I think a better word actually responsibility would be. It's not. I don't. I don't credit Jerry Jones with a majority of the responsibility in regards to cutting Bryant. But anyway, so for my initial reaction, again, like I said, I was definitely shocked when I first read the news, and overall, I am actually slightly disappointed in this. I think this is I think this is 1 year premature of when we actually should have cut Dez Bryant. If the Cowboys had cut Bryant in like February or March, I'd probably be a little bit better because we could have still have been able to potentially sign more free agents. But now that the free agency period is pretty much over, the Cowboys literally, I think the only person that's would be suitable would be Jonathan Hankins, and if not, then just like the only thing else out of him is just some sort of veteran player who chances are be like a backup, which would be really inefficient if you ask me. The only reason that would be useful if we're just going to add depth to it if we sign them to a 1 year deal. Although I really don't know if that's completely necessary. Anyway, so since because now that Dez Bryant is cut and that we can't really sign anyone, which is a big reason why I'm not really happy with this move, even though that Dez Bryant was definitely past his prime and he was definitely declining and was not really worth $12 million for the upcoming next year is what I think it was. I could be wrong. Anyway, I was hoping that they were just going to restructure his contract and then, or actually, not only was I hoping, that's what I was completely expecting. But obviously that did not happen. The front office pushed for the complete pink slip. So anyway, moving on. Given that now our number one wide receiver is Allen Hurns, who's a very respectable wide receiver, I always thought he was very solid in Jacksonville. He was a very good red zone threat, and I think if he's going to be the number one receiver, he can be able to show off more of his potential. But we need a huge or a much bigger net behind him because there's literally almost no depth behind. Cole Beasley is a good slot receiver, but for guys like Terrence Williams or what's his name? Oh my God, how do I not remember his name? Fuck. I'll leave it in the comment section below, but it's our punt return that we drafted last year. I can't believe I fucking can't remember his name. But anyway, so that's that. But anyway, so we're gonna obviously be drafting a wide receiver pretty high in this draft now. If Calvin Ridley is able to fall to 19, I would totally snatch on him right away. But if he's taken before that, which is what I expect, personally, I would actually want to wait to the second round because personally, I am not a fan of Christian Kirk, who on my board is the second wide receiver, and so for my on my I guess draft board per se, my first round wide receivers that I think would happen would be Ridley and Kirk, and I also now I this is contrary to my previous mock drafts. I also think DJ Moore would be a first rounder, and although I had the Cowboys, although I mocked the Cowboys to select him in the second round, that was only because he kind of fell in my draft, and he was kind of worth a little bit of a steal at the price. But if the Cowboys maybe for some reason like trade down to later in the draft, like with a playoff team, I would not want them to take more. And if they stay at number 19, I would not want them to take Kirk just because they're under 6 feet, and I just personally want I just want a big wide receiver. I feel like the more height we get, the more advantageous we're going to be. And although Calvin Ridley is somewhat is kind of average height, I think he's still pretty much a beast. He was awesome in Alabama. Anyway, so with that said, my two favorite wide receivers that in the upcoming draft would be Cortland Sutton from SMU and DJ Chark from LSU. They're both of them, according to my research, were 6'4", both had monster years, and they all seem to have very good potential, and I'm hoping we'd probably take one of them in the second round. Moving on, before I go, there's also something I definitely wanted to touch upon. I am aware of the tweets and the rumors saying that Dez Bryant was going to, quote-unquote, meet the Dallas Cowboys twice in the upcoming season. So, of course, that's hinting that he's going to go into an NFC East rival, which scared the shit out of me when I read that. And not to mention, because backstabbers are some of the worst fucking people I can imagine in my life. And if Dez Bryant were to go to one of our 3 NFC East rivals, that would be a total motherfucking bad backstabbing. Same thing happened with DeMarco Murray after his MVP season in 2014, and I was absolutely infuriated when that happened. If Dez Bryant does the exact same thing, I don't know I'm probably going to go on a rant. With that said, the 5 teams that I expect to be vying for Dez Bryant are the Washington Redskins, the San Francisco 49ers, the Baltimore Ravens, the Indianapolis Colts, and the Houston Texans. I don't expect the Philadelphia Eagles or the New York Giants to go after him, not because of their cores. They could, although they are pretty good, I wouldn't surprise me if they would add. They just don't have the cap for the contract that Dez Bryant wants. But Washington, on the other hand, does. And the good side of hope that I kind of have in terms of my optimistic views, given that the Washington Redskins signed Paul Richardson from the Seattle Seahawks over the offseason, I'm not sure if they're going to go for a second wide receiver, but it would not hurt them at all, and I do think they would have the cap to do it, but it would only have to be for like a 1-year deal, and I'm not sure if they would want to do that. So, given that, it's a little, in my opinion, ironic how these two, how Dez Bryant's comments and the cap spaces of all the NFC East teams are kind of juxtaposed, because it's just kind of, it's really conflicting in my opinion, whereas the other 4 teams I mentioned, well, maybe not the Ravens, but the others have seemed to need wide receivers more, and they kind of have the cap to do it, minus Baltimore, but Baltimore could still go after a receiver instead of waiting for the draft. So, with that said, I knew this was going to happen sooner than later, but I would have much preferred if Dez Bryant would be cut over the next offseason, because we didn't cut him before free agency. And with that being said, Dez Bryant is still a very, very good wide receiver. He's just not the all-pro that he once was back in like 2012 to 2015, 16. Clearly, last year he kind of fell off a path. He hasn't had a 1,000-yard season since 2014. He's dealt with some injuries. His drops are starting to become very concerning, and I don't know if his hands are going to somewhat improve, but he's still a receiver that I would love to have on a team, just not for a price of $12 million. So, obviously it hurts our team, but that's only going to be for the short run. In the long run, hopefully it'll pan out with the new young cores that we're going to be having. I guess that just wraps it all up. So Dez Bryant, unless if you end up elsewhere in the NFC East, I completely wish you the best of luck that I could possibly give. I will continue to root for you unless you're with an NFC East rival or the New England Patriots, although I doubt they'll go after him, even though it's been an internet rumor. So I guess that kind of concludes it, and I don't really have much else to say except that I'll have a third mock draft coming up soon because it's my second one has been outdated given that the Patriots have traded with the Rams for Cooks and that the Cowboys have just released Bryant. So you could be tuned, be prepared for that, and I'll see you all later.